Well, thank you. I'm going to stay up here just so that I don't take the additional time of wheeling that over. We've been working on this message. I was going to switch it up, but I figured, well, I'll try to see if I can get this completed. And it's looking like we'll be able to tonight. We're talking about distractions. And so we find ourselves here in Luke chapter 10, 38 to 42. Martha and Mary. Now, as they went on their way, Jesus entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching. But Martha was distracted with much serving. And she went up to him and said, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Tell her then to help me." But the Lord answered, "Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her." We've been talking about the idea of distractions, and especially in this passage, we kind of get a little hard, on Martha here. But, if we put ourselves in her shoes, I think it makes a little bit more sense, right? Probably anybody in their right mind would want to serve Jesus, right? He shows up, he knocks on the door, he comes in, and she is she's one that wants to provide, she wants to serve him. And so instead of taking it easy, instead of just sitting at his feet and listening, she decides to show her love and appreciation for him in a different way. This can probably resonate with a lot of people. There are a lot of people who are that way. Now, I'll be honest with you. In my office, I have what I call an open door policy. You're always welcome to come in. I do not have a great mind that says, "Oh, let me offer you a cup of coffee when you come into my office." You may sit there for an hour talking to me before I think of, I should probably offer them something, right? So some of our minds, we don't work the same way. Some of us are kind of wired in different ways. And for Martha, she's like, there's a lot of things that I want to do here because it's not often that you show up at my house. It's not often that I get the opportunity to share with you, to provide for you. And so if you can remember a few weeks ago, I had you kind of in your own mind begin to have a list of things that need to be done. And we talked about those. Sometimes the things that are on our list are getting the house clean, doing the laundry, making sure we meal prep, making sure that our car is good, getting the oil changed, getting our flowers done, getting, our gardens taken care of. And all of these things just begin to pile up. But when we begin to talk about our to-do list, how often we forget the one thing that's needed. Time with Jesus. That's the one thing that's needed. And so, we can sit here and we can look at Martha and we can just kind of roll our eyes, scoff at her, or we can look at our own lives and we can go, I kind of fall into that sometimes. I have so many things on my to-do list that, I miss this or I miss that. Oftentimes, we leave things out. And I think like Martha, many of us are trying to juggle a half a dozen things in our life all at the same time. Well, I would ask the question, but the easier question would probably be, who here is not trying to juggle 6 things in your life at the same time? Right? I mean, everything just builds and builds, and it gets more difficult, even for those that are retired. Or should I say supposed to be retired? I'm looking at Karen right now. That's just the way life is. Things just continue to stack up. I mean, when you begin to consider some things, we've got all these things like we want to spend time with our family. We have work. We have our schooling for some of us. We have friends. We have hobbies. We have all of these things that take up our time. And for some reason, the thing that tends to get the last resort is, oh yeah, and I have my relationship with Christ. When it should begin with my relationship with Christ. And then here's the crazy thing. When that happens, everything else just kind of falls into place. When our priorities are straight on what we're supposed to be doing, and our personal relationship with Christ is growing, everything just seems to work out. Notice, I didn't say everything seems to turn into being easy. It's not easy. But things do really begin to work out because our relationship with Christ is the most important. And so, sometimes we ask ourselves, how do we allot the limited amount of time that we have? How do we fit all of these things together? We need to begin by focusing on the one thing that's needed. And that's the interaction that Jesus has here with Martha. He looks at her and he says, Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. Notice the words that he repeats after this. Mary has chosen the good portion. I'm just going to stop there. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall in that room, in that moment. Because if I could put myself into Martha's shoes, I'd be going, Jesus, are you crazy? You come into my house, I'm trying to provide something for you. She's sitting there. How is that the good portion? We're supposed to have a servant's attitude. We're supposed to serve others. We are not supposed to be about ourselves, but here she is sitting there. But Jesus, he just says it. You're anxious and you're troubled about a lot of things, but one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her. To kind of think about this a little bit, Revelation chapter 3, verse 20, in this passage of Scripture, Jesus says these words. He says, Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and he opens the door, I will come in to him and eat with him and he with me. We oftentimes associate this with salvation. We oftentimes will associate this with Jesus standing at the door of our heart and knocking, wanting to come in to have a relationship with us. And I believe that, that's a portion of it. But if you actually go to Revelation 3, who is he actually talking to? This is a part of a letter, a set of letters, a series of letters that are being written. And this is actually a part of a letter that is being written to the church at Laodicea. Interesting. He says, write these words. And he brings this out. These were spoken to people who were churched. But they had their priorities all out of whack. They were confused on what should be taking place. They were people not unlike Martha. When Jesus knocked on Martha's door, she warmly welcomed him in. But then she became distracted. How many of us become distracted by the things of the world? When Jesus stands at the door of our heart and he begins to knock, how do we respond? How do we react? I mean, I could take us through a hypothetical week. I could say, okay, let's get into their sandals and let's consider our own week and let's consider for a moment the fact that maybe we're sitting at home and we're running late because it's Monday morning and nothing on a Monday morning goes well, right? And so we're really struggling with time, and then Jesus comes and he knocks the door. What would our response be? I mean, I could ask questions like that. Would we say things like, yes, please come in. I need to talk to you. I need some help. I just want to listen to what you have to say. Or would we be saying, I'm sorry, God, I just don't have time for this right now. I've got to get out of the house. I've got to get moving. I'm running late. Could you stop some other time and talk to me? And the same thing may happen Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday. And before you know it, you're talking Friday afternoon and you're preparing for an outing with your friends. And there's Jesus again asking for just a little bit of time in your life. And instead of sitting and listening, you decide your friendships are more significant than your relationship with Christ. And then you get to Saturday and he's standing there still and he's wanting to have interaction with you. And at that point you're preparing for the next day. And so you're running out the door as you see him and you say, Jesus, I don't have time today, but tomorrow is Sunday. I will be in church. So you come into the church, you sit down in a pew, Jesus is right next to you. He smiles because he's happy that you're there. You smile because, well, you're in church and you're doing your priority here. And so, you're sitting there and Jesus kind of looks at the bulletin and he goes, this is going to be an interesting sermon, don't you think? You kind of shrug your shoulders. Maybe you say something like, actually, I was hoping the other pastor would be preaching. One way or the other. And you're looking around the congregation and you say, oh, Jesus, you see that person over there? They were rude to me 2 years ago and I have not spoken to them since. Can you believe they haven't even tried to make things right? Yeah. Or maybe you're sitting there thinking, man, I hope the service doesn't go too long because I have a lot of things I want to get done today. Do you see how easily distracted we become? And then even at times when you're sitting in the house of the Lord and you're a part of a service, I just wonder to myself how we respond if the musicians play a sour note. Is that something that runs through our mind that we can't get rid of? Or maybe the fact that the pastor doesn't wear a tie, or the fact that there's a modern pulpit that is being used now, or whatever the case is. It's amazing to me how quickly we get distracted by things that really have no implication on our future in heaven. And Jesus is literally in this interaction. He's telling Martha, Martha, I am sitting here in your home. You're complaining to me about the only one in your home who's doing the right thing. When Martha became distracted and she lost her focus on Jesus, he was there to remind her of what was truly important. But the same is true today. God does the same thing. He will remind us of what's important. Because every one of us, I'll be honest with you, it drives me mad when I hear people say, I can't be in church because I'm too busy. Really? Look at every schedule of every person who is alive right now. Everyone is busy. Everyone has their own list of things that they're trying to accomplish. But at the end of the day, there's one thing that matters more than anything else. It's not our job. It's not, unfortunately, I don't hate to say this, don't take this the wrong way. It's not our family. It's not the sports team. None of that has eternal value. But my relationship with Christ does. My relationship with Christ does. Your relationship with Christ does. Your children's relationships with Christ do. I'm not saying that we should skip out on time with family. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is, if we want all of these pieces that we're trying to juggle all at the same time to finally begin to settle into their spot in our life, it can't start with them. It has to start with Christ. So distractions, they get in our way. I hope that we can prioritize in our heart and in our life that Jesus is indeed the only thing. Jesus says to Martha, one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her. I hope that every one of us have chosen, the good portion that will never be taken away. Why don't you stand with me?